Morning, everyone. This is something as the Hampton Roads Church staff wanted to bring to all of you. I know right now it's hard to meet together. Some of you can't even go to work, and those of us that are parents know that our kids aren't in school. Hopefully that homeschooling is already started off well this morning for you guys. I know for us, finding out how I am not a teacher. But we wanted to be able to bring to you guys just a little daily time to look into the Word together. And for me, I chose the topic of forgiveness. You know, for all of us, forgiveness is a very unnatural thing. It's not something that flows from us just naturally. You know, even when I think about my own kids, I have to tell them to not only say they're sorry, but in addition, say that they forgive you. You know, and as we grow older, of course, it may become easier for us to say, I forgive you, but it's harder for us to forgive someone in our own hearts. You know, and we can carry around these weights of unforgiveness, and it becomes this burden, this weight, and eventually it can steal our joy. Let's go to Colossians chapter 3. We're going to be reading in verse 12 here. And don't worry if you're unable to keep up with me when it comes to flipping to the scriptures. I'm going to have them all listed out for you at the bottom there. In verse 12 it says, "Therefore as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with each other and forgive one another if any of you has a grievance against someone. Forgive as the Lord forgave you, and over all these virtues put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity." You know, for us, we get to see that the perfect example of forgiveness is, of course, Jesus. Is, of course, our relationship with God. The only way that we're able to have that connection, to have that relationship, is that God himself forgives us of our sins. And unfortunately, when we lose sight of that, it becomes harder for us, ultimately, to forgive others. You know, back 2 chapters in Colossians chapter 1, in verse 13, it really shows us what this forgiveness is for us as Christians. Verse 13, it says, "For he has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son he loves, in whom we have redemption, the forgiveness of sins." We have to be able to look back and remember that we were in the dominion of darkness. Let's go to Psalms chapter 103. And we'll get to see the same trend, not only with Jesus, but that God has had this heart from the very beginning. In Psalms 103, in verse 7, it reads, "He made known his ways to Moses, his deeds to the people of Israel. The Lord is compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in love. He will not always accuse, nor will he harbor his anger forever. He does not treat us as our sins deserve or repay us according to our iniquities. For as high as the heavens are above the earth, so great is his love for those who fear him. And as far as the east is from the west, so far has he removed our transgressions from us." So here, of course, we get to see God's heart to not only love us, but to forgive us, to show us exactly what forgiveness is. And of course, we can't leave this topic of forgiveness without talking about one of the greatest examples that we see in the scriptures with Jesus himself on the cross in Luke chapter 23. In verse 34, as Jesus is hanging there on the cross being crucified, Jesus says, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." Even at the point in time where Jesus is probably more than any of us in a position to struggle with forgiveness. Yet we see he forgives. You know, our ability to forgive really does come down to our understanding of our own need for forgiveness. You know, and I want to ask you guys to go ahead and study further if you want to take a look in Genesis chapter 37. Really read about how Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers. And then, of course, chapter 45, we see this great moment of forgiveness. And like I said, all these scriptures that we went over today will be at the bottom of the link. And church, I do want to continue to emphasize and stress prayer. Prayer in this moment when our nation is going through so much, when our families are going through so much, and prayer for us to have faith and for God to move through everything that is going on. Thanks.